Hey folks, how's it going? So, over the past 2 years, we've all witnessed an increase in the crime rate. We've seen an increase in everything from muggings, carjackings, kidnapping, assaults, murder, uh, the whole range, and it's not just limited to crime like that, but there's been a massive increase in retail crime, shoplifting, and theft. And a lot of this is there's a lot of different reasons for this, um, but a lot of it can be traced back to this new trend of being soft on crime. Um, Known criminals are being released from prison. Dangerous criminals are being released from prison, uh, and a lot of the FBI's and law enforcement's attention has been turned away from these violent crimes and focused on more politically motivated investigations. Unfortunately, that's a trend that's we've been seeing and is going to continue to see going forward. But one thing that I do is I try to keep a close eye on a lot of the crime reports coming out of not just my area, but the larger cities near me or within an hour or two of where I live. One of those big cities is Atlanta, unfortunately. And I'll be the first to tell anybody I live way too close to Atlanta, but at the moment there's not a lot I can do about that. Um, I I'm not in a position where I can move, unfortunately. So I just have to make do the best I can with where I'm at. And there are a lot of other people in that same situation. Uh, but to that end, I try to keep a close eye on a lot of what's going on in Atlanta and the other large cities that are close to me. Uh, and in particular, I've actually follow a lot of the uh, crime activity in the county and in the city I live in. Um, I live in a smaller town, but I still track all the crime there, and I keep a close watch on the scanner traffic in in my county. And one thing I've noticed is over the past 2 or 3 months, it seems like, uh, possibly leading up to the midterm elections, but a lot of it doesn't seem to be connected with that. But in the past 2 or 3 months, there's been a major spike in uh, in crime, particularly violent crime using firearms. Um, in Atlanta, for example, there was an 86-year-old woman with dementia that was sitting in a car, and a carjacker jumped in the car and took off with the car. The woman was fortunately uh, she was found safe because the carjacker, essentially, if I understand it right, turned himself in. So she was not harmed. There was another woman that was living in a gated community, and she was stabbed to death in her gated community's garage by someone who was attempting to steal her car. There was another woman that was found in a fire. Her and her, I believe it was her nephew, and it had been found out that her throat had been cut. Um, and then there's the myriad of shootings happening. School kids at a school party were involved in a shooting, and two of them have died. I think at least one I know for a fact has died. There was another shooting somewhere else where two died and six others were injured. All the people involved in that one were minors. So again, what I'm seeing here, and I've been seeing a reflection of that in my own county as well, where there's been a major increase in assaults, uh, large groups of people fighting, um, shootings, random shots being heard. and not in areas where you would expect to be hearing shots, like out in the rural area where people are target shooting or hunting. These are being heard in apartment complexes and places like that. So what I'm seeing is in Atlanta and in other cities like that, there's been a sudden increase in the amount of gun violence. All right. In my county that I live in, uh, there's been an equally large spike in violent crime. Um, so I've seen enough to know that it's not necessarily related to the midterm elections. It That's not to say that there couldn't be people behind the scenes trying to instigate random acts of violence. I mean, that's always possible, but the nature of the crimes that I'm seeing, the nature of the violence that I'm seeing, it just doesn't fit that pattern. And who knows if you're one of those people, there's some people that would say, well, that in itself is a pattern. Um, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but that's not because that's not what my this video is about. This video is about situational awareness, which is something I've talked about before, but I wanted to talk about again. We're seeing all of these spikes in crime, at least in cities around me and in my own county. I believe this is going to be something that's being seen in other cities and counties and states around the country. I don't think this is something that's unique to this area. This is just another example, another reinforcement, you might say, of the need to exercise situational awareness. And for a lot of people, they go through life, they go through their days with blinders on. They're focused on this one task, not seeing anything on uh, the periphery. Like they're going to work, they're doing their job, they're coming home, they're running errands, they're coming back home, whatever. They're not paying attention to what's going on around them, and they're not staying informed and alert. And that's how you walk into bad situations, and that's how you get caught up in situations you shouldn't be caught up in. And a lot of people just write situational awareness off as simply being aware of what's going on around you. But there's a lot more to it than that. That's it in a nutshell, but there's a lot more to it. Situational awareness is not only being aware of where you are and what's happening around you in your immediate vicinity, it's understanding the bigger picture. It's understanding that uh, certain situations, certain economic or cultural situations in your area could be contributing to a higher risk. Um, if you're in an area, if you're doing a lot of traveling, or if you live in an area where there's a large number of sex offenders or drug addicts, drug dealers, and other crime like that, you're automatically in an area where there's an extremely high risk of something bad happening to you. So it's even more critical that you pay attention, again, not only to what's happening directly around you, but understanding your vulnerabilities, when you're most vulnerable, and what areas pose the most danger, and trying to avoid those areas is as often as possible. Put simply, you if there's a way to do what you need to and avoid an area that's known for high crime and violence, it's well worth your time and your safety and energy to avoid that area, even if you have to drive a little bit out of your way. Uh, your safety as a prepper and as an individual in general, your safety and the safety of your family is your primary concern above all else. Uh, and you can't provide for your safety or your family's safety if you are knowingly or even unknowingly putting yourself into a dangerous situation. Therefore, it's prudent to be aware, again, like I said, of the areas that pose the most danger to you when you're most vulnerable, understanding the threats that are around you and how to avoid those threats. Again, situational awareness is not just about knowing what's going on around you, but is being able to classify the type of threat that you are facing, as well as ways of avoiding that threat. So, and that's something we as people have largely forgotten how to do. I mean, there's a lot of people that really focus on this stuff, but day to day, the average person really doesn't pay attention to what's happening around them. You can, I mean, especially when people are holding phones in their hands, uh, they zone in on that phone and they're oblivious to anything and everything going on around them. Uh, Case in point, there's a couple of people at my job that I could walk up to them. They would be on their phones or they would have their earbuds in or what have you. And I could walk up to them and I would be standing within a foot of them and I would be saying their name really loudly, trying to get their attention. They had no idea I was there because they were so wrapped up in the music they were listening to, into the game or the video that they were watching. They were completely ignorant that I was even there. And if I had any ill intentions, it would have taken nothing for somebody with ill intentions to, if I can get that close to them trying to call their name, what would it take for somebody with bad intentions to come up to them and slip a knife between their ribs, cut their throat, hit them over the head, what have you? People like that are extremely vulnerable and they don't even know how vulnerable they really are. That's the sad part. So we really need to make a conscious effort to stay alert enough to what is around us, who is around us, what is going on, and we need to refine our ability to identify potential threats. Uh, so you need to be able to notice when somebody's paying a little bit more attention to you than is normal. You need to notice when somebody is standing a little bit too close to you. And as you move around, if you're in a store, for example, pay attention. If they keep following you, something's wrong there. I mean, sometimes it's just a coincidence. Y'all are all shopping for the same ingredients, but you need to be aware that, okay, this person is this close to me. And if I move over here, they move over here as well. Uh, and it's not just focus on one person either, because there's situations where one person can hold your attention and you won't see the other two people coming from other directions. You know, you have to be aware of these things. Uh, where you park in a parking lot at night, you need to be aware of that, um, particularly for people that are more vulnerable. There's a lot of women out there that can take care of themselves, no problem. Uh, so this doesn't go for just women; it goes for guys, it goes for elderly, it goes anybody with young children with you. If you're in the store at night, you want to make sure you park somewhere where there's plenty of light and there's plenty of other people around. You don't want to be off to yourself in a dark corner. I mean, this is common sense stuff, folks. It It's stuff that we shouldn't have to explain, but we've lived in such a comfortable society for so long that these are things that we're forgetting how to do, and it's putting a lot of people in jeopardy. So, yeah, when you go into a restaurant or a business of some kind, you don't have to be paranoid. That's not necessary, but it is important to look around, make note of any extra exits, make note of where fire extinguishers are. Just get in that habit. Don't be one of these people necessarily that, well, I've always got to sit in this seat with my back to a wall and so I can see both doors. And you don't have to get that ridiculous with it. But it does pay to make note of certain things when you go into a building, into a restaurant, for example. Note where the exits are. Uh, make note of where fire extinguishers are. If you happen to see a first aid station, make note of where that's at. Uh, something like that could save somebody's life in the event of an emergency. Uh, and just be aware enough that if somebody happens to be following you or paying a little bit too much attention to you or acting suspiciously, just be alert enough that you can notice that. That means not having your face glued to a phone 24/7. That means not having earbuds in. If you want to listen to something with some earbuds, that's fine. What I usually do is I'll have one in and I'll leave the other out. I can listen to whatever I'm listening to, but I have one ear unoccupied so that I can still hear what's going on around me. Again, pay attention to where you park. Uh, if you want to get real paranoid with it, I do this a lot. I try not to go follow the same route more than once in the same day. I like to switch up my routes. That is not because I think somebody's going to be following me or anything, although there are situations where people could conceivably lay traps for you and whatever. I know that's a little bit on the paranoid side, but if you're ever in a situation where uh, you have somebody following you around, whether it's something unlikely or whether it's somebody like a stalker or just somebody with road rage or whatever, don't follow the exact same path home. And if somebody is following you, I wouldn't recommend going home anyway. I would drive a bunch of different roads and I'd try to, if you feel like you're being followed by somebody with road rage or what have you, try to go to a very public place. If possible, a police station, if nothing else. Uh, that's for your safety. Um, but these are little things that we need to start thinking of with the crime on the rise, particularly with violent crime on the rise. It's really important that we stay more aware of what's going on around us, and we troubleshoot in our heads. We plan out, if this happens, this is what I can do. If there's a fire, I can go out this way. If that door's blocked, I can go out this way. We live in a time where uh, random shootings happen. People just go into a place and start shooting it up. That's an unfortunate reality of the times we live in. So it wouldn't hurt to, when you go into a place, just war game it for just a second. Okay, if something happens, I can go this way, or I can do that, or I can take cover here, or I can use that as a weapon. A couple of minutes, you've war gamed it, you're done. Enjoy your night. You don't have to stress yourself out and be paranoid. But the key here is if you do this, yeah, you might do this 1,000 times and nothing will ever happen. And if that's the case, that's wonderful. Uh, you've been very lucky and very blessed. But there's always that possibility that you could be one of those people that walked into the wrong restaurant, into the wrong club, into the wrong grocery store, or what have you, uh, and paying a little bit more attention, being just slightly more observant, and thinking ahead could save your life or that the lives of somebody else with you. So this is a lot of people say this is something stupid to do, but this is really critical, folks. With the world we live in, violence has gotten worse over the past few years. It's going to continue to get worse, particularly if we go through a severe economic crisis. Uh, and with a lot of the political polarization in this country, there's a lot of extremists, and there's some on both sides. I'll admit, uh, it's not restricted to just one side, but this violence and this crime is going to continue uh, to go up. It's going to continue to happen in larger and larger numbers with a larger frequency, and we need to be ready. If if you don't think it's important enough to do for yourself, think about your family. If you're a parent and you've got children, think about those children. You need to be able to take care of yourself to take care of them. Really need to understand that. If you have people depending on you, use that as motivation. You for yourself, safety for yourself should be your primary focus. You can't help anyone if you don't help yourself first. But this it's really critical, folks, that each and every one of us start refining the skill of situational awareness. And again, you don't have to get paranoid. You don't have to act like you're Jason Bourne being followed and trying to lose a tail or something like that. But be aware that crime is on the rise. There are a lot of bad people out there. There are a lot of people out there that would rather hurt you than help you. And as unfortunate as that is, it's a reality, and we need to be prepared for it. So there are steps you can take. Again, just start noticing things. Anytime you drive somewhere, start picking out things you haven't noticed before. When you go into a place, just make note of where the exits are, where the first aid kits are, if any, where fire extinguishers are. Uh, just be aware of what's around you, and you know if you try to focus on being more observant and noticing these things, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and you'll start doing this without even realizing you're doing it. And it doesn't really, unless you let it, it doesn't really ramp up your stress level either. A lot of people would think, okay, you're doing that, you're going to be so stressed out and paranoid that you're not going to be able to function. But you don't have to let it get to that point. That is taking it way too far. Uh, that's all I've got. Just stay aware of what's going on around you, because again, I'm seeing so many reports on the news. I'm seeing so much scanner traffic that there's been an increase over the last few months, even compared to what we've seen in the last year or two. And it has me really concerned about violence and crime going forward over the next couple of years. Uh, so just try to make an effort to start noticing things every single day as you're out and about doing whatever you're doing. It takes nothing to notice, like, okay, these people are here. There's the entrance. There's the exit. Uh, what have you? It's a real simple thing to do. And the payoff could be enormous at some point in the future. That's all I've got. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. I hope you found this useful. Until next time, stay safe, keep prepping, keep busy, keep productive, and I'll catch you later.